Well, good afternoon, everyone. Meteorologist Michael Wilhite here with Southern Indiana weather. I wanted to do a video today. I haven't done one for a couple of 3 days now. And of course, we had some active weather over the weekend. We had some severe weather. And we were in, as you know, we've been talking about this warm and cool pattern, but that may be starting to change. And I wanted to do a video today that would sort of give you an idea more of the long range pattern, really through almost the rest of October, to give you an idea over the next 2 to 3 weeks what you can expect as far as temperature wise, because I believe some big changes are on the way. And if you just take a look right here at what the GFS ensembles are spitting out as far as temperatures over the next 10 or so days, 15 days actually, you can get a pretty good idea of the cool down that's coming. Right now you see some 70s in store for us for the next few days, which is nice, pleasant weather. But by the time we get to the 16th and on, notice how we start to bottom out on the temperatures, and these will be fine-tuned a little bit more. I wouldn't be surprised to see some of those days actually be in the 50s, and we'll show you why here in a second. Right now, though, if we take a look at radar, absolutely nothing on there. It's a clear sweep on radar. Nothing to worry about. It's sunny skies across the area, and that's going to stay pretty much the temperature, the way the trend is over the coming days. But there are some big changes brewing, and one of the things that we'll take a look at first is a typhoon that's brewing in the Pacific Ocean. And you say, well, what does a typhoon that may affect Japan have to do with me? Lots. Because we've talked about this before, something that meteorologists call the typhoon rule. And here's essentially what it is. You have a typhoon that's scheduled, according to this graphic, to develop really tomorrow. And remember, a typhoon is just a big low-pressure area. It's the same thing as a hurricane. They just call them a little bit differently out there than we do. But then watch how this thing is forecast to go. It recurves up this way. And eventually, it's going to be forced to recurve this way. And that's because there's a huge upper-level high pressure that's out here. And that will force, with the jet stream dipping down like this, and going on, it will force the typhoon to go in a manner very similar to this. Now, the typhoon rule very simply states that when you have a typhoon form out here and it's forced to recurve and start to head toward Alaska, you've got the jet stream that's kind of dipping down and going up like this. Eventually that typhoon is going to interact with the jet stream. What we're saying is that in days 2 to 5, you'll start to see a trough over here. Now, it's not the actual typhoon that forces this. It's that the typhoon interacts with the jet stream, and it sort of throws a kink in the whole system, and that just kind of forces changes on down the line. And what we're saying here with the typhoon rule is that in about 6 to 10 days, what you'll see is a trough in the jet stream over our portion of the world, and that can bring some major changes. Now, if you happen to have a blocking pattern towards Greenland over here from a high pressure, then you could at the same time end up with this blocking pattern forcing that trough down for several days at the time. If you could do that, you could get a pretty decent sized cool down, and that's actually what may happen. And so let's just sort of take a look at the data as it stands right now. Let's go and look at our teleconnections first. We've talked about these before. Remember, these are indications that I can use as a meteorologist to tell me where that jet stream's going to go. So the first thing we'll take a look at is the Arctic Oscillation. This is air on the move from Canada. Is it cool? If it's negative, it's cool. If it's positive, it's warm down here. Notice we go back to neutral maybe a little bit, but we stay pretty much negative. -1 to -2. As you go down through time here. So that's a good sign that cold air from Canada is on the move. What about the P&A? Remember that the P&A is a measure of the dip in the jet stream as it dives over to us. A positive P&A means a jet stream dives over our area and takes a nosedive, whereas a negative P&A means we set up more in a ridging pattern here and we become warmer. Notice it goes very positive, and notice here we start on about the 13th or so, it starts to go positive. And here we are by the 25th, and we're still on a positive trend. It just stays on a positive trend if you believe this. Now, the other lines on here, the black line is the control, the operational model, if you will, whereas the other lines are the ensemble members. And the green line here is the mean of all those different ensemble members, but even on the ensembles, it stays positive. A positive P&A like that will force that jet stream to stay over our area. So that's a good sign. Now let's take a look at one more. You got the North Atlantic Oscillation, and indeed it stays negative as well. You remember NAO, and a negative NAO means you've got a blocking pattern over Greenland, which forces that jet stream to stay over us for a good little while. That's exactly what we're seeing. So this is a pretty good thing, and an indication to us that we've got some definite pattern changes taking shape. So let's take a look at what all is going to do this. First thing we'll take a look at our chart here, our mean sea level pressure, where our fronts are going to be located, and some accumulated precip on this as well. Let's start this out where we're at pretty much right now, pretty much boring sunny weather, which is nice for a change. You got the nor'easter moving its way up the coast, but that won't affect us. But notice this system brewing out here in the Rockies, and watch how this moves down. It moves up this way, but it sort of drags a cold front behind it. Here's your cold front right here. It's a long cold front. And if I put this into motion a little bit more, you see this moves through on Sunday. Now, I don't believe that we're going to have much of a chance at all on Sunday for rain or Saturday, and here's the reason why. If you want a good shot of rain, you want that low pressure as close to you as you can, because you see where that's all the big rains usually are. But notice how this low pressure tends to want to go poleward. And what you're going to find as this goes on is that you have the low pressure way up here in Canada, but then you have the cold front extending back like this. And so it's a long cold front. It's sweeping through much of the nation, but it's also not a very strong cold front because the low pressure itself is way up here. It's disconnected from anywhere in here, and that's why in here you get these light shades of gray. And these light shades of gray, as you notice, aren't much of anything. You're not even talking 1/10 of an inch of rain. You're talking 100ths of an inch of rain at this point. So as far as this weekend is concerned, I'm not really worried about too much rain. 20% chance on Saturday, 30% chance on Sunday. We might get 2/10 of an inch out of the whole system if we're lucky on this, the way things look right now. And many locations, I won't say most, but many locations may even stay high and dry. But as you go in time, you notice high pressure starts to take over. We get that cool north wind going on again. But notice the system that's brewing here in the Central Plains, and notice how it's moving our way. This low pressure does stay pretty close to us. It actually moves in, and we get a decent shot of rain. And what comes behind this is that northwest flow for the winds. And that northwest flow for the winds is going to be a pattern changer for us. So if we just back it up here to about, say, 156, here you are on Tuesday at 8 p.m. And you got your low pressure. You got your low pressure here, and you've got a trailing cold front right about here. And that may end up forcing some sort of a line of storms to move this way. Well, let's take a look at our upper level dynamics and see what we've got going on at about hour, I believe 156 is what we had here roughly. Yeah. Now let's look at hour 156, and I was already there. Click back towards this. There you go. You've got your low pressure. You got your trailing cold front. You can see temperature-wise, we're in the mid-60s by this time. So not bitter cold by any means, but certainly not warm. A little bit below normal for this type of year. Normal right now is 70 to 73 or 74, depending on what part of the state you're in. So low 70s is pretty much our normal this time of the year. So we're 5 to maybe 10 degrees below normal at this point. If we take a look at where the winds are positioned, though, we get an idea, and you see this. Notice where the jet stream is at. Here we are about 6 to 10 days out from this typhoon, and you see a huge dip in the jet stream. Remember, the typhoon rule said 6 to 10 days out, you find a dip in the jet stream that comes right over our area and brings us pattern change. That's exactly what we're finding. Thing of it is, we're going to see that this jet stream sticks over us for a while, because at the same time that this jet stream is sticking over here, we're going to end up with a blocking pattern that's going to keep this jet stream forced over us for a little while. But one thing I really want to notice here with the jet stream, with this strong of winds over us, first off, the greatest chance for severe weather obviously would be closer to the low pressure cell. But you notice we weren't overly close to the low pressure this past weekend, and we still had some severe weather. Well, that's because we still had a lot of upper level dynamics in play. We got a very strong jet stream over us. If you go to 850 millibars, what you see is you've got a 30 to 40 knot lower level jet over us as well. here in southern Indiana and Kentucky. That's certainly conducive to some severe weather. Here's the problem, though. You go to instability, and we'll take a look at CAPE, which is convective available potential energy. That's a measure of instability in the atmosphere, and you see that it is almost non-existent. So we will have to monitor this. If we could warm it up just a little bit more, because with temperatures in the 60s, that's not too bad. But remember, for instability, we're looking at warmth and moisture. Surface dew points are also in the 60s here, so we're near saturated. So we've certainly got the moisture to work with. We just don't have a ton of warmth to work with here. And also we're going to be dealing with cloud cover that day around, which will limit our instability as well. If we could end up getting that cloud cover out just a little bit, we could potentially see some severe weather. Now, am I saying severe weather will happen under this scenario? Absolutely not. But I'm also saying I am not ruling it out yet. I think the pattern of the 15th, next Tuesday, I believe, is the 15th, right? Whoops. Yeah, the 15th is next Tuesday. I believe the 15th is what we really want to take a look at and keep an eye on very closely over the next few days and see what this does. So, again, we can't rule severe weather in, but we certainly can't rule it out. But let's just kind of advance this in time, and I want you to notice as we go through the jet stream, the trough starts to dig in. And look at this. Here we are several days later. The trough is still over us. Several days later, the biggest portion of the trough has moved on, but we've still got a fairly good northeast flow. And as you go out over in time, here we have a trough in the jet stream coming over us again because we've got that blocking pattern. And as we get towards the ending period and where the model sees out to Friday, October the 25th, we end up with yet another big trough over us being forced down by this blocking high, and you end up with what very potentially could be some of the coldest air of the season at this point. So how cold are we talking about? Well, if we just take a look at forecasted low temperatures over this time frame, you see we're not going to be too bad as far as tonight goes. By the time you wake up on Thursday morning, well, here we go. Right there. Thursday morning at 12 ZUC, it's forecasting about 51 tonight on this particular model, so it's not going to get very cold tonight. As you forecast on through here, and you notice the cooler weather from out here starting to move its way along with that cold front. And by the time you get out into this time frame of the 15th and 16th, you see the cooler weather. We start to see some low 40s. By the time Thursday morning, the 17th of October comes in, a couple of days after that big time front has moved through, we're down to potentially about 42. Advance this on out into the period, and by the time you get out to Friday morning, October 25th, you're talking 37 degrees for an overnight low, for a morning low here in Huntingburg. And you're talking about certainly some freezing temperatures up for northern Indiana, even Indianapolis at freezing. If the temperature trend pushes us just a little bit cooler, we could be looking at our first freeze of the season. But I certainly think that with 37 degrees in Huntingburg, some of the outlying areas certainly could have frosty conditions on that morning. So low temps are definitely going to be something that we're going to have to consider during this time frame. And I think we're in for a big time pattern change. So we were looking with that up and down, up and down. I'm thinking that we can kiss the 80s goodbye based on the data I'm seeing. I think you're going to hit, if you take a look at my 7-day outlook, southernindianaweather.com, you can always get the 7-day forecast by clicking up here on 7-day forecast. And you see 76 is the highest temperature. I have it in the 7-day outlook. I really think that you can kiss the 80s goodbye. I think they're gone for the rest of the year. I could be wrong in this, but based on the data I'm seeing now, I think they're gone the rest of the year. And I think by the time we get into next week, we may even see the 70s just about disappearing for the rest of the year. We may be looking at 60s for the rest of the year. I'm not willing to say that's 100% accurate completely at this point, but that's the pattern as it's looking to me right now. So again, I think we're in for that big time cool down as time goes on, and I don't know about you, but I love fall weather, so I'm looking forward to it. We'll continue to monitor this, and I'll have more updates as they become available when more model data comes in, and I'll keep monitoring that threat for next week for the potential of severe weather on Tuesday into Wednesday morning. So just understand that it's there right now, and we'll look for when more model data comes in. So for Southern Indiana Weather, I'm meteorologist Michael Wilhite. Hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time. Have a great night, folks.